Hi guys, it's the final episode of Geek'out on Bitcoin, and I'm excited to have Toni Lane Casserly. Is that how you say your last name?
It is. It's just I usually go by Toni Lane, TLC.
Yeah, TLC. I was about to say Tinder Loving Fan, but since you're like branding as well, co-founder of online publication CoinTelegraph. More than that, she's also a great humorist, entrepreneur, and an artist. Welcome, Toni. Before we start, before we go deep into Bitcoin, I noticed something really interesting on your tweets, on your timeline. There are various quotes being superseded on your face. Can you tell us about it? Is it an art project, or is it your thoughts to the world? Like, can we go and delve into that a little bit before we go?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel that the very nature of social media causes a lot of people to lose their resonance with deep learning, which I think is one of the most fundamentally important things about being a human being. Your own potential and capability to gain a deeper knowledge or a deeper insight. I think so many people are living in the world that it's really rare that I feel most people actually have time to gain some perspective. And so it's not necessarily, everything I do, Twitter is a series of artist statements for me. Most people use Twitter and social media as their way to kind of represent a brand. I feel that most people are either, you are a brand. And so you're pushing a product, you're selling something. Anytime that you're using social media, you're representing yourself. And the way that I want to represent myself is as a product that is selling nothing but knowledge. My only intention with Twitter, and the only reason why I use Twitter, is I hope that it would give people a reason to stop during their day and actually take time to really think about something that's meaningful outside of these constructs of, every 5-second interval of a piece of, whether it's meaningless information from a content site that's meant to be for brands and for advertising like BuzzFeed, or whether it's something substantive, to encourage people to have more substance and more depth. I even use the characters that I use, the text that I use in bold and italic sense to I want to disrupt the flow of the way that people would normally use a platform or the way they would think about it. And I hope that, if I can inspire one person to think outside of the box or to gain a deeper insight about life and the human experience, that's the point of my Twitter. The point of my Twitter is usually that I really don't care about Twitter. And any person who wants to read my Twitter should do so just to gain some perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like maybe timing wise, it's 2015. December, middle of December, and everyone's in the reflection mode a little bit. Let's go back to Bitcoin now. Can you introduce yourself? I know people who are really familiar with you, and there are some people who are new to Bitcoin in this space. Do you mind introducing yourself, please?
Absolutely. So I am Toni Lane, TLC. I'm the co-founder of CoinTelegraph. We have the largest media network in the Bitcoin and blockchain industry. We have CoinTelegraph, CoinMarketCap, 12 other properties, offices in operational offices in 5 different countries. We've had offices in over 14 different countries. I am also an advisor to about 6 or 7 companies in the cryptocurrency industry, namely ChangeTip, Factum, and most importantly, a project that I'm investing a lot of my time into right now, which is Bitnation. It's essentially a one world passport. It is Facebook. Bitnation is Facebook for governance. And I'm investing a lot of my time in that right now. I'm a thought leader in the crypto space, and I feel so lucky and so blessed and so honored to be doing this interview with you. So thank you for taking the time out.
No. I'm really happy that you came on. It's like, let's do it next week. It's like, yes, my type of person.
And then we brought up my Twitter and my life as an artist. So to expound, I am also a recording artist. I'm actually going to fly to LA this week to go meet with my manager and start working on an album and finalizing some great details. And I teach people as an artist. This is a totally other field of my life that I rarely talk about in the Bitcoin and blockchain industry, But in my life as an artist, I actually am creating a new medium, and I teach people how to transcend space and time. So I make other people's minds into works of art collectively.
Okay, I feel like that's another whole episode in another place.
For sure.
Are you planning to buy it, like, you know, your patrons buy it with Bitcoin as well? Or is that like a PayPal and Bitcoin when they buy your album?
Well, so that also, are you speaking of my artwork?
Yes, technically, yeah.
So I have art pieces and I have clients. My art pieces are people that have really special talents and gifts. It's kind of like there are certain talents that you just can't buy. And so the people that I use as my art pieces are all people that already have a lot of skill. And then I have clients that want to learn how to use the skill. I use lucid dreaming as a gateway into my art form. And so I do have certain clients that are, and I certainly take Bitcoin as a form of payment, but I can teach people how to get into the kind of frame of mind that you need to actually explore these, the metaphysics of what is the human experience. And certainly Bitcoin is a payment method, but I wouldn't say that my life in Bitcoin and blockchain technologies is kind of in this box as an entrepreneur. And my life as an artist is this other world. And although being that I am one person, they are inherently intertwined. I wouldn't say that they necessarily have a great contextual overlap.
Okay, I was about to ask, how do you balance it? But you kind of intertwine it. You just kind of answered my question already. Back to, so what's your rabbit hole story? How did Bitcoin find you?
Well, I am a deep thinker by nature and by trade. That's so much of what I do, so much of what I love to do, and just the way that I learn. And so I ended up, after leaving, I went to art school, I studied performance art and was a performance artist, and realized what the market cap for the industry's propagating art effectively was. And upon understanding this and this increasing market cap for technology, I'm deeply a humanist, deeply an artist, deeply a capitalist. I knew that I needed to learn more about business and the structures that had effectively been shaping the broader construct of society at large throughout centuries. So I ended up going to the University of Texas after I left SCAD, which is art school, and I studied politics, philosophy, and international business and economics, as well as advertising. So my double major was advertising and international business. And I took most of my classes in philosophy, economics, and politics because I finished most of my college credits in high school. And so they kind of just said, you're going to be here for X amount of semesters. You can take whatever you want. And that was what really interested me. And I gave this massive speech. Because when I read something, like, I become a story, and everything to me, it's kind of like that moment where you'll have music playing on in the background and you're reading a book, and then all of a sudden, all of the music disappears. Like, you can't even hear anything anymore because you're so deeply meditating into the story that it actually becomes a part of your being. This is just the way that I learn. And so I just became fascinated with these ideas, like realizing that all of these systems that had structured society were broken. Like, we don't live in this Aristotelian idea of citizen and state, because you have more power voting with your credit card than you do in a national election, where the electoral college and the defunct idea of a representative democracy, like, actually makes the executive decision, a system where people are actually disempowered from participating in political processes just based on the very nature of the way the system functions. And I realized that the entire way that we had thought about the idea of economy as well was also totally broken. We were basing our ideas on economy based on Keynesian economics, which is effectively buy and consume, and based on Bernays, who's Sigmund Freud's cousin, who structured all of these propaganda strategies for the 19th century. we live in a society where people are taught that in order for an economy to function, they have to live with fear and insecurity, and they have to satisfy themselves and their needs with material means instead of seeking true satisfaction within and from knowledge. And so I just realized all of these systems were so vastly, deeply broken that the world in and of itself needed a new way to think and to function. And so I ended up giving this massive speech just because when something like interests me, I just can't I just can't stop. And so I ended up giving this massive speech. I was asked to speak and at this like huge graduation type event. And I had someone approach me afterwards, just really randomly, someone that I had never even met before, or someone that I haven't even seen since. And they were like, have you heard about Bitcoin? And I said, no, what's that? And they said, you literally just gave a speech. Everything that you just talked about, all of these ideas, they've already been made. And it's something called Bitcoin. They linked me to the forums and they linked me to the white paper. This was in 2011. And I was curious. And so I said, wow. And then I read as much as I could and got involved in the industry as soon as I possibly could. Came out to San Francisco actually to start working at ChangeTip. That was the first company I was involved with in the Bitcoin industry.
So someone on Lola and I have the same question that leads up to it. Do you think Bitcoin is a solution to the broken system that you mentioned?
It's a complement because not all of the systems are broken. So there are some systems that are, and it depends on how you want to define the idea of broken, right? I don't think Bitcoin is a replacement for systems that are working. It is a replacement if you have an ideological disconnect with things like the Federal Reserve or the way the United States manages money or even fiat currency. If you have a strong ideological belief, then Bitcoin is definitely something that you should invest in if you're living in a developed economy. I think where we really see potential for Bitcoin is not to replace all finance. If the system is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But for countries where citizens are vastly disempowered by their governments, when you spend every day mining $300 million worth of diamonds, and when you approach your government and you say, where's the money for the people? And they say, what diamonds are you even talking about? We don't know what diamonds you're talking about. And all of the politicians siphon the money. They inflate the currency to the extent that the people living there can't even leave. That's where Bitcoin has real potential. When you're a woman and you are fundamentally disempowered from owning your own money based on the religious, the societal, the political law, Bitcoin is a way out for those women. It is a way to be empowered. It is a way for them to actually have access to their own life, something which they would have never been able to understand if they were still living in a system that fundamentally disempowered them by very nature of the way that it functions.
So there's like a big unbalance between the first world country and the third world country. And Bitcoin could help resolve and balance it out, do you think? Because I do believe that there is like an untapped potential in the unbanked society with Bitcoin, but it doesn't seem to be hitting the mark with it. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's going to take time. As with all change happens in one of two ways. You either have chaos or you have evolution, like calm and peaceful evolution. And I think everyone would like to see calm and peaceful evolution. The problem with a lot of the developing countries is also like the spread of things, even like information, right? Even if something is working, it's still like there are so many hurdles that you have to overcome. You have to have people on the ground interacting with citizens individually, telling these people like, if you actually want a life of your own, like this is something you can use, this is something that you can do to obtain your own freedom. It's really a matter of education. And in some countries, a matter of creating mobile applications where you actually have the infrastructure for people to participate in a broader economy. I know a lot of people that are working. I also do a lot of business in Africa. I have, in addition to this, I also have a charity. So I personally fund 14 kids to have a home and a family in Sierra Leone after they lost so actually case study. During the Ebola crisis, I got really involved because I was talking with people on the ground there. I was talking with people on the ground, on the ground on a daily basis. And I realized that so many people were dying, not because of Ebola, but actually because the banks couldn't process the payments fast enough to actually get people the money they needed so they could get the resources across state lines to actually give people food and water. And so I was talking to people on the ground and I said, okay, well, we have to start raising money on our own, and we have to start using Bitcoin so that way you can have the funds that you need to go get the supplies to save the village. And so many of these kids that I would talk to on a daily basis, would just wake up and they'd call me on Skype and they'd be crying and they would have just lost both of their parents. And they're my kids, right? Like I can't just abandon these people who have lost these beautiful, like 4 to 6 to 8-year-old kids that have just lost everything that they have in a way that's totally out of their control. So it's Kids Compassion Charity, www.kidscompassioncharity.com. It only costs $100 to send to give one child a home and an education for a year, which is crazy. So Bitcoin has this, that's just one use case of the way that we can actually empower people to use Bitcoin in these countries through like these very specific instances where there are natural disasters and people need to get immediate payments so they can afford supplies, or in the case of Bitnation, where you have refugees and after natural disasters, you have people that have no identity. Not only empowering those people to take control of their lives financially, but empowering those people to take control of their identity. So I think what we're really going to see happen as far as adoption, and the reason why adoption has been slower, is because you can have like you can have kind of like this very steady wave of impact, or when you have one big event, that's when you see the rise of adoption really take off, because there is an immediate, imminent need that's top of mind. It's strange for people in the developed world to think about this, but a lot of people in these third world countries, they kind of accept life as the way it is because they haven't known anything different. And so empowering people to rise through circumstance like this is really how we're going to see the economy evolve and change and really gain a wider adoption in the countries that can benefit the most.
So another question from the audience. When people talk about Bitcoin mass adoption, do you think it's possible without adopting a specific ideology?
Absolutely. I think ideology is a necessary principle in areas where the economies are already developed and we have a very solid structure for financial institutions. So in this instance, I think the only reason why someone in the developed world would invest a lot in Bitcoin or would really use Bitcoin is if they have a very strong ideological disconnect with the idea of the Federal Reserve or the very systemic nature of the way finance systems work in the developed world. But certainly, I mean, Bitcoin as a technology is an ideology, and I think what we'll actually see is, rather than adopting the ideology, the very nature of the way that blockchain technology works will fundamentally restructure the way that society thinks about itself inherently. So I think that blockchain technology is in and of itself a philosophical shift in the way that humanity interacts with each other, in the same way that the internet created a real philosophical shift in the way that we communicate and connect with people, and that we're all living all over the world right now, and there are like 60 of us in one room, right? Blockchain technology will have the same kind of revolutionary systemic and societal impact as far as the philosophical change it will create. But certainly you don't have to believe in what you believe in as long as you are empathetic and educated about your opinion and can listen to other people express themselves without feeling like you have to constantly defend your position. Yeah, I think it's actually healthy to have a robust system of idea and belief. That's how you create diversity and fundamentally new ideas.
Cool. So you co-founded CoinTelegraph. How did that get started, and what's your vision for the online publication?
Yeah, just seeing the opportunity, being lucky, and being poached actually to run CoinTelegraph. I actually so there are two co-founders of CoinTelegraph, myself and my business partner, Dimitri. And we met and we ended up having this call. And I just essentially told him, like, here is every reason why this is not a business and this is just a blog. And we got into this very long conversation about the evolution of the business model, the structure of the identity for the company, how we needed to scale and become profitable, the way we needed to monetize the kind of intellectual property that we needed to file, and effectively structuring a very strong legal and company strategy to make sure that we were not only an industry leader in influence, but actually had the tactical resonance and know-how to be able to create something meaningful. My vision for the future of this publication. So there are some things that I can't talk about yet that really interest me as far as the spread of information, blockchain technology, and incentives for journalists. There's a really big problem in my mind in the entire news industry, and that we live in a society where journalists are usually paid and funded by corporations, or news organizations are, meaning that the majority of the information that you read, regardless of whether or not you are aware of it, is an advertisement. And so what interests me fundamentally is structuring a different incentive layer for the evolution of journalism, creating something that is relative to peer-to-peer compensation for information. So I can't say too much, but there is a much bigger vision from a technological standpoint. My vision for the growth of CoinTelegraph as a publication is, to remain an industry leader in this space. We do open offices in other countries. So if anyone in this room, or if you know anyone living somewhere around the world where there isn't a CoinTelegraph office yet, we tend to work with people who are already in online advertising that want to get into content, and we open up branches all over the world. We actually just opened a branch in Japan. So always interested to talk to people around the world that want to get involved with our business, use our brand, write about Bitcoin and blockchain technology, and do local translations of any of the pieces that we already have listed on the site. So, I think this, please.
Is there one in France? Is there a CoinTelegraph branch in France?
I don't actually think we have one open there right now. I would absolutely love to talk to people from any and all countries, because even if we do have a branch, there are so many ways for people to get involved.
Okay. And one is including translation of the content that's already written on the main site. So let's have a reflection of 2015, and you like reflection. And CoinTelegraph is full of content. What are some of your most interesting highlights that you think happened in the Bitcoin and blockchain space in the last year?
I think the things that have been the most exciting have largely flown under the radar, because the majority of the people that are reading information from outside of the Bitcoin industry are mostly interested in these very big moments, or these big grabby headlines, or who is Satoshi Nakamoto. And I think we'd be really remiss because for me, the most important articles of the entire year aren't always the ones that get the most views. Sometimes they're these really beautiful and meaningful stories about one child, or one woman, or one man, one human being on this earth whose life has been so fundamentally changed by the way that this technology has been able to empower them. And those stories for me are the ones that, I mean, they're stories, right? They're real and they're human and they're true and they're beautiful. And that's something you can't buy. That's something you can't create, right? You can't create truth, even though most people try. And based on the way the media works today, a lot of people do. But the stories I think we've seen, I mean, obviously everyone has been so obsessed with the Satoshi Nakamoto debate. Here's the thing. If someone is going out of their way to say, please respect my privacy, I just personally think if someone wants to be that private and there is actually a serious legal and political risk for them to reveal their identity, respect that about a person. And although I think that's been a really popular topic, I actually have, and I understand why people are curious, but I actually think there's a slight ethical problem with that kind of exposure or writing about that. There are some things that I think that when Satoshi Nakamoto is ready to reveal who they are, they'll do so. But until then, I really feel just on a human level that we should respect other people's privacy when they ask for privacy surrounding their personal lives. And the most interesting stories to me have been about the spread of Bitcoin blockchain technology, major institutions giving this industry more credibility, and the amazing potential for, not only obviously systemic evolution and for global empowerment on a human rights level using Bitcoin and blockchain technology.
Speaking of that, you said like some information has been not promoted online or on certain online publications. What have you seen so far that you wish to promote? You mentioned, some really cool case studies within with ChangeTip, for example. They did some really cool things when the Nepal earthquake happened. And the Red Cross came on board, and they probably didn't know what Bitcoin was, and they were really surprised by how positive the community was, generous, like just giving them everything. And to the point where I feel like it was interesting because they didn't utilize Bitcoin the way it was utilized. It's almost like they have these red barriers on board where they couldn't give money straight away. So how can we, find people on the ground and give them their money? That's one of the questions that popped up when I did the Nepal earthquake as well.
Yeah. So finding people, okay. And this is an interesting challenge. And anyone who's interested in doing this, I love these things. And whenever a moment like this happens, like I'm the person who's like, I'm the crazy person who's like, oh my God, there's a like, I'm like booking a plane ticket. I'm like, let's go. Let's like get on the ground. Let's be there. And because I'm the person who like, I love adventure. And I feel like you can do so much when you're actually around the environment. But not all people, that's not always the right strategy. Even in many, like in so many instances, people are like, that's, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that you're going to this place right now. But how do we find people on the ground? It's a matter of building solid networks in advance, and also social media, but making sure that the people you're working with are people that you trust. So the way that I would say in specific areas, especially when you're working relative to Bitcoin, I'm also one of the founding members of the African Bitcoin Foundation. So I had been working in Africa for a while, and actually I have to give some props up here to one of my really good friends, Jeremy Gardner, who was formerly at Augur, which is this like amazing prediction market built using Ethereum. He's also the co-founder of the College Cryptocurrency Network. So actually, originally, the way that we got connected through all this, it was Jeremy Gardner and Daniel Bloch and I. And Jeremy just like leveraged, he had schools all over Africa. And so we just leveraged the network that was already in place and started reaching out to people and talking. And there have actually been a lot of initiatives that have sprung up from that. So I would say the way, especially if you're dealing with Bitcoin and blockchain technology, It's making sure that if there's an area that interests you politically, where you think that there's a lot of room for people to be empowered, connecting either with like one of the CoinTelegraph networks, one of the Bitcoin foundations, but having very strong communities in place in these areas, reaching out to and through these communities, and then having the people that are either already on the ground there or already have a network in place there, allowing those people to actively connect you through the landscape and the environment. And having that foundation in place first, especially not only the human foundation, but the foundation of trust is really important, especially if you're doing work in an area where there's very little law.
That's probably one of the things that I love about Bitcoin is that it's bringing back the empathy and trust, and people don't realize that until they go deeper and deeper into it. So there's almost like in many ways I say Bitcoin is bringing back the power back to the people. And a lot of people get really freaked out by it, especially capitalist people, it's like because they're also driven by the money, and they treat Bitcoin as fundamentally as a currency. But I feel like there's an underlying technology that we talked about a little bit about, what are other value systems that you think that Bitcoin has that people should know about as well?
So I think empowerment is the root of it all. And I wouldn't say, wait, there are a lot of capitalists that love Bitcoin. A lot of capitalists love it because the primary market, why do you think we had this crazy price? So I could delve into price, but like half of the market for Bitcoin was speculative investors. Capitalists are like, Bitcoin is A-okay with me. And then, a lot of people divested from the market after price spiked to 1,200 because we were effectively running a fractional reserve. Not me. But there was a fractional reserve exchange in place at Mt. Gox that caused the price to go wicku and then kusk, which caused a lot of people who put a lot of money into Bitcoin to say, okay, now price is like stabilized at 600. I've like lost half of my investment. I thought price was going to go off, so I'm just going to get out of the market. Capitalists love like investments like this, especially if they actually dive into why Bitcoin is important. So I would say, and also being a capitalist is not a bad thing. Being a sociopath is a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? Like being a capitalist is a great thing. You're like, we live in a free market world, right? And also I'm American. So like America is the capitalist like paradigm. It is the free market where you say, I want something, I want to do something, I have money, I want to buy it from you. Finance in and of itself is actually a form of being empowered. And I still think we're all looking for, that's a whole other conversation about the broader structure of society from the perspective of having a capitalist balance with, a human perspective on society. Being a cruel, like hurting people for a material thing, being cruel, evil, manipulative, without empathy, to obtain that capital, that's where the issues are. But other than, money is great. I love money. We all love money. Everyone loves money. I've never heard someone be like, you know what, I just like, unless they don't have like money.
Actually, I have to admit that Bitcoin taught me a lot about money and economy. It's a very good foundation to learn about the truth about money and about money and losing and disconnecting from money. So you have a more subjective view about money. And then once you let go of that, you kind of see what money really is. It's just a tool to help you do stuff if you need it.
Exactly.
Essentially, I had to break it down fundamentally. So we really talked a lot about the value systems of Bitcoin. What are your tips for people who actually want to start learning about Bitcoin?
Money is a means to an end, not an end in and of itself. And when you place the value of money as the end, that's when I think people start to run into some serious moral and ethical issues. How would I suggest people, if you want to get into Bitcoin, it's just kind of, it's like anything else, like become just like ingrain yourself in the ecosystems, ingrain yourself in the culture, read as much as you can, know as much as you can, learn as much as you can, and then just experience. Like, go online and like go start start randomly, like learn how to trade by like literally get like $20 and like just start micro trading and micro trade, like start hedging and figuring out like patterns, read about pattern evolutions in the markets, like just start trading, start understanding the way these systems work. Like maybe you just want to start with Bitcoin. Maybe you want to get into the entire cryptocurrency landscape and ecosystem. If you want to get involved, maybe you're interested not necessarily from a financial point, but you're interested from a point of taking the skills that you already possess and translating them into helping this economy flourish. In which case, reach out to people. Like people's email addresses are so public. Reach out to me, like reach out to anyone in the industry. And if something really interests you, if you have a question about something, ask. Because the other way that we learn just as human beings, you can read as much as you can read, but also, learn socially. Learn through interaction, learn by building a community, start talking to people, start asking questions, meaningful questions about things that really interest you and really show that you have a passion. Start connecting with the community, start going there are meetups everywhere, start going to meetups, start going to conferences, and just ingrain yourself. Ingrain yourself socially and do so from a place of having the knowledge to where when you're talking to people about these systems, you can actually communicate with them in an intelligent way. So you don't feel like you run into the community and you're like, oh, like I'm like dependent on everyone to like teach me. Be confident, be aware, do your research in advance, and just walk in. And here's the thing, like we're all one human race. We're all like, what is my race, my ethnicity, National Geographic, where is my home, Pangea, so we're all one race on one planet that used to be one continent, and just approach people with knowledge and humility and just respect for everyone's individual being. And be genuinely interested, and people will be genuinely interested right on back. They will be genuinely interested, and people will be genuinely interested in helping you.
Okay, I have to reveal my secret now. And one of the reasons why I do a weekly Bitcoin podcast is to meet cool people like you and to learn. It's probably the fastest way of learning. It's just because if you have a portfolio of work, it's just okay, Suzanne is someone who's really committed to Bitcoin, and that's what I am. I think my value system I go meet it. I get the hipster version of Andreas. If you know who Andreas is, he's like my hero. See, everyone's hero in the Bitcoin world, because there's not enough communicators within this space. There's always people developing Bitcoin. It's that's great. And there are people who want to use it, but they don't know how to use it. So you need someone who needs to be the communicator, the bridge. So I'm hoping to be that value system there. So that's my secret, guys. I have a major reason why I do these Bitcoin thing is because I want to go super deep with it. So another question, a lot of persons where do you think the future of Bitcoin and blockchain is heading? We talked about the past, we talked about the present. Where do you think Bitcoin and blockchain will be?
Well, that's up to us. That's up to us. Because and especially based on the size of the community and the economy, we are the future of this industry. It's not me. It's not one person. It's not me. It's not you. It's not Roger. It's all of us at once. So if you, and I think every person in this industry would completely agree with me on this. So if you want to, if it's not about seeing where it's going to go so much as it is about making sure it goes in the direction you want it to go into. With any invention, with any technology, with anything, it's really a matter of the people that are using it, right? We make the system. What is the internet? Why does the internet work? What is the future of the internet. It is all of us and the way that we decide to use something. I think Andy Warhol actually had the most insightful statement about the internet, which was, in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. And I think what we're going to see with blockchain technology, fundamentally, like at the long end game, which I don't know. I mean, when I say this is not going to happen until like the next 25 years or more, right? But I think what we will actually see is a level playing field for humanity and a reestablished sense and understanding. This is my God. This is my greatest hope and my greatest dream, that if in one day during my life, we can actually see this world be at peace with itself and with each other. And my God, if we can achieve that, I think that is the potential for the dream. So I think it will effectively recreate and redistribute that idea of what it was like when we were just one human race living on one human continent. And it will transform the way that we have global relationships. We're already transforming the way we think about homes and societies. Like, even think about the biggest businesses of like this past, like Uber owns no cars. Airbnb owns no houses. Facebook owns no people. And so I think that we're really seeing this total shift in the way we're experiencing a shift in the way that value is created in an economy. And I think the blockchain is this fundamental layer of society to create what is a pure one world truth. Now, if that power stays in the hands of the people, I think that will be positively revolutionary. If that power is redistributed into systems that behave unethically, I think that we have to, as a people, make sure that that power stays in our hands. So, I mean, global evolution of every system, recreating what Bitcoin and blockchain technology does. Bitcoin and blockchain technology recreate the idea of Pangea in the modern demographic.
Which probably brings to the other question that I'm curious about is language, especially because, like, you know, CoinTelegraph somewhat influences language and the way we perceive Bitcoin. At the moment, let's contextualize it. At the moment, the banks have been avoiding the word Bitcoin, especially startups as well, and promoting themselves as a blockchain startup because Bitcoin maybe has a negative history, but 2015, I have to admit, has been a very positive year for Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize that. There hasn't been any bad influences in terms of drugs money or anything like that. Why do you think people are so excited about blockchain? I know there's private blockchains, but I don't think it has the same kind of world peace that you're looking for. Why do you think a lot of people are like really excited about the word blockchain at the moment, or the technology that it's bringing?
And the fundamental difference is that the thing about private blockchains is that we will use, as like a human race in a society, the technology that is most beneficial to all of us. So private blockchains have like a use case, but I think it's private blockchains are antithetical to why the blockchain is a revolutionary invention. So I think they have a certain level of utility, but it's like here's the mark. They're like over here. They've totally missed the mark.
Because they're avoiding the word Bitcoin in the first place as well, because they think that it actually threatens the whole belief system that they have in the first place. No,
it's not the word Bitcoin. Do you want to know what it really is? It's because we have people. Here's the thing, like, you don't destroy dogma by attempting to create dogma. And you can't use their strategies. You can't use the strategies of the people that are doing the wrong thing to build another system where people are still continuing to learn to do the wrong thing. It's like, no. The reason why people are so afraid of the word Bitcoin is because the word Bitcoin was originally associated with, it's like if someone walked into your house and they were like, hey, what's up? So we're gonna like So I'm glad that you're here. We've like created this revolutionary thing. It's called like a bomb, and we're going to kill your whole family because you work for the bank, right? And like, that's the most extreme thing that I've ever said. And I've never heard anyone in Bitcoin say anything remotely close to that. I'm creating an extreme hypothetical. But in this situation, it's like the reason why people hate the word Bitcoin is because people are talking about Bitcoin and using it to threaten others, because empathetically, they're using it to threaten others because they fundamentally feel that these other people are unethical crooks and demons and like these just terrible, bad, unethical murderers. But when you approach someone and when you approach someone with the attitude of, I don't even know you and I don't know your life, but you call a person or a system, like a group of, and I'm not even saying, granted, from me, I am not at all saying that I agree or that I disagree with what these people have said. I'm merely with these opinions. I'm literally merely saying that when you approach someone with that attitude, regardless, someone's immediately going to have their like, here's my guard. What's up? What's up? Here's my guard. Here's my defense. Because you immediately, I know before I even meet you what your opinion is of me, and that you hate me, and that you want to destroy me. So like, back off. We hate Bitcoin. We hate it. And that's the real reason why, and I understand that the people who say these things really do see serious ethical flaws in the way that the systems of the past have worked. I don't disagree that the systems are seriously ethically flawed, but I do agree that you have to put people first, and you have to understand that if you're saying something that's going to make someone get all emotional, then you're going to spark an emotion. And if you spark that emotion, you have to be ready to deal with it. So it's like blockchain is the PC way of saying this is a revolutionary technology where we don't actually feel like someone is going to hurt us or destroy us, or it's destroy my job and my salary in a way that's going to affect my family or like my personal life, So I think that's really the bigger thing. I think if we approached everything with a bit more love, just like in general, if we just approached everything with a bit more love and a bit more empathy, I think everything in this life would be so much easier. Maybe people would actually start to understand each other and to see why other people think things are important instead of trying to reinforce their own opinion, which creates a self-perpetuating cycle of negativity and fear. If you create emotional fear or tension, expect to receive that kind of reaction. So, blockchain is kind of like this, it's the PC buzzword, but fundamentally it has greater applications than, Bitcoin in and of itself is an app. Bitcoin's an app. It's like email. I talk about the dynamic of Bitcoin and the blockchain in the same way I talk about the dynamic of email and the internet. Email is like the first real use case of the internet that people were like, oh, whoa, cool. Like I don't have to use the post office anymore. Like this saves me money and this saves me time and I'm immediately connected to people and life is good. And so it really is a use case, and blockchain technology really does have broader applications. But banks, just like anything else, it's like when you threaten someone's life, their immediate reaction is going to be to preserve. And that's the reaction that we're seeing from these people, and that's why.
Okay, because you use the buzzword this year, blockchain, within the Bitcoin world. If I had to say, if I reflect back on 2016, I feel like blockchain is the buzzword. And especially there's a lot of forums, writings, economy writings, and white papers saying tipping point of blockchain is 10 years. And I think, probably like that's like unrealistic. I think it may be, the more people use it, it might actually exponentially make that shorter, the growth shorter. So I'm going to open up the question up to everyone else. Anyone in the room who wants to jump in and say hi to Toni? Anyone who wants to ask more questions about Toni? Like, if you just reiterating, there are some. She's a major humanist. Like, blockchain is the buzzword of the year for many reasons, because it's the infrastructure that you've seen being built right now. If no one else, where else can we find you, Toni? Just continue on with the question.
Sure. So my Twitter handle is at Toni Lane C, ToniLanec. My email address is, one of the easiest ones to reach me at is tlc@cointelegraph.com. The other way that you can reach me is my full name. It's Toni Lane Casserly, CASSERLY @gmail.com. You can also contact me through my website, which is the same as my Twitter handle. It's just www.tonilanec.com, and there's a contact form there, so you can feel I'm accessible. You can reach out to me in any way. My Skype username is also Toni Lane Casserly. Most of my email addresses are either my full name. Most of my email addresses and my usernames are my full name, Toni Lane C, or TLC.
Okay. What else can we look forward to? You mentioned quite a lot of projects in 2016. Should we look for?
Your voice is kind of breaking up.
Hang on, let me refresh.
By the way, hi everyone. Hello. I wish you could all be in this conversation right now. I hope everyone is having the most amazing day. I'm in San Francisco right now, and it's like so stunningly gorgeous outside, and I wish all of you guys were here, and I hope that everyone is having an incredible holiday, whatever you believe in and whatever you celebrate. Be surrounded by people who love you unconditionally. I wish that for all beings on earth. And please, yeah.
I mentioned we talked about. Because it's a good note, right? Because it's a good note. Okay.
For that company, that's going to be very exciting. The potential for Bitnation it's extraordinary. It's a one world passport. It's, I think, the most revolutionary company in this entire industry. So if you know anyone that wants to be involved there, Bitnation has we have 400 volunteers and contributors on that project. So it's very easy to get involved. I would love to have as many people on board as humanly possible. And I wish that I could get to know each and every one of you. And I want everyone in this room, everyone to just follow every dream that you have, because life is short and time is valuable, and you are too valuable, too meaningful, and too important to this world to spend one day of your life living someone else's dream. So I am so excited to see what the future holds for this industry, for all of us. And I hope that it creates an extraordinary amount of success, not only for this economy, but for every one of you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And who is the founder of Bitnation. She is like she spent the past 10 years of her life restructuring governance systems. She's one of the most amazing women I have ever met in my life. Her name is Suzanne Tempelhoff. She actually just got back to Rio, to her house in Brazil. And she's just like, I do not have enough good things to say about this woman. The community that I've seen her build and what I've seen her accomplish, the amount of drive, discipline, and determination she has blows me away. She's incredible. Suzanne is amazing. Victoria Van Eyck is also absolutely incredible. She has been the community manager at Change Trip. She is this incredible, sweet, pure-hearted, giving, and loving Canadian woman. And she is also someone who, as far as her dedication to Bitcoin as an industry, is like, there are very few people that I have seen like she will literally, anytime we are out somewhere and someone like doesn't know about Bitcoin, or someone has some kind of wrong opinion about Bitcoin, she's like, No. And she will just like, she launches into, in like a very, in a positive and constructive way, educating people about this technology, and is one of the, she's just like one of the most wonderful people that has ever been on this planet.
She's one of my anchors for Bitcoin. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, Victoria and Suzanne, and my gosh, there are, I think I haven't met, I haven't really met, actually I haven't spent a lot of time with Catherine, who's the CEO of BlockCypher, but I really respect the work that she's doing. And but she's like a fantastic female to follow. I would also say, oh my gosh, Blythe Masters, who I haven't spent as much time with Blythe as I would like to, or as I need to. But she's definitely, I mean, she's already ahead of industry in her own right. And I think the contributions that she's going to bring to this community are going to be absolutely extraordinary. I know that she's raising $35 million right now for her company, and I wish her so much luck. And I am so appreciative that she sees and understands the vision. The other person I would suggest, I don't know if any of you guys have met her yet, but Catherine Harwood is the new CEO of Mycelium. And she is just like, she is a really, I've met her just a few times, but she's an amazing executive, and she's a really brilliant woman, and she has such a bright and beaming personality, and is going to do incredible things for this industry. I am sure. I feel like there are so many people whose names I could mention, and I don't want to leave anyone out. Someone just said, actually, Cheryl from Let's Talk About Bitcoin. Yes, Cheryl is awesome. She used to write with us. She is like a very sweet and kind person, and she's very keep the peace. I would also say Stephanie Murphy from Let's Talk About Bitcoin, who also has another podcast with Brian Sovereign, who's her partner, and she's just an amazing and absolutely incredible woman. And I feel, there are so many instances where a lot of women, and I know I don't want to isolate anyone in the room, but there are a lot of instances where I feel women think they have to compete when they should all be collaborating. And all of the women that I've mentioned, the reason why I say these names in particular is because these are the women that I see reaching out to, especially like, these are the women that I see empowering other women in a way that's real and in a way that's meaningful. And I think there are some people who, there is a really interesting dynamic, but I love to support and empower women in their careers to live their dreams. I think we're all, I don't even see gender, right? Like, we're all one human race, not separated by a chromosome. But the reason why I mention the names that I mention is because they are women that I see go out of their way to really make sure that other women in this industry are empowered. And I think that's a really, really super meaningful thing.
Cool. So this ends the whole session today, the final one. And if you don't know it, you should follow me on lab.im/springstory for more sessions about Bitcoin next year. I'm bringing more of these like women on board, especially people always suggested Mycelium is about a wallet, so I'm hoping to for sure. And if anything else, I see you again next year, guys. Enjoy your happy holidays. And thank you again for being an awesome guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. You are too wonderful and so kind. Thank you, everyone in the audience today. Happy holidays to you all, even if you're just celebrating winter solstice. Happy holidays every day. Find a reason to celebrate.
Bye.